Thank you, Rohan sir. Thank you, AS, for this opportunity. And I will be talking on OCT and OCTA imaging opening the new horizons. So we all know the various uses of OCT, and the international nomenclature for OCT have described the various layers from posterior cortical vitreous to the choroid scleral junction. And this correlates very well histologically also. A simple CME have been described showing inner retinal changes to outer retinal changes to changes in the photoreceptors layer, the stages, and here we see a simple CME on the ENFIS pattern. Now, this was a recent study where they studied the vitreous using OCT in younger individual and compared those with the older individuals. The upper images are those of a younger individual where the various bursa, cistons, and the prevascular fissures are very prominently seen and were not connected, while the lower images are of an older individual where these are disorganized and also interconnected. This is the vertical scan image also showing the same. Coming to the surface disorders, we have epiretinal membrane, which is a hyperreflective membrane with multiple tractional points. And this can further cause various traction at the inner layers and outer layers, leading to decrease in vision and metamorphopsia. Now, another one to differentiate from this is lamellar hole associated epiretinal proliferation, where a medium hyperreflectivity is seen at the surface of the retina, along with the connection near to the molar cells. Hence, these membranes are usually sticky and they are difficult to peel. One has to keep this in mind while operating such cases. Now, suppose that there is a young patient who comes with ERM, and the OCT shows such a picture where there is inner retinal distortion and hyperreflectivity present in the form of sawtooth appearance and bounded by the outer plexiform layer. This has been termed as omega sign and is a feature of combined hematoma of the retina and retinal pigment epithelium. Now, in case of a simple myopia, a naive person might just lose out any changes at the posterior pole. But OCT does shows these changes very prominently, like focal traction, causing inner retinal and outer retinal problem, the presence of the subretinal fluid in this case, and the development of the macular hole. Also, these cases may be associated with foveal schisis. After the surface and tractional disorder, we come to the contour disorders, where like dome-shaped macula. Now, in dome-shaped macula, there is elevation in the posterior staphylomatous area, and this is prominently involving the macula area. And we also see the choroidal thickening at the area of the elevation. Now, sometimes these lesions may be considered as mass, which may even be seen on the ultrasonography. One must know this entity to distinguish it. Now, OCT is a characteristic feature. Sometimes what happens that this may be a spherical or vertically oriented or horizontally oriented dome-shaped macula. And sometimes if you do only a single scan, you might miss this finding. Hence, a multiradial imaging must be performed to identify them. Now, these cases may also be associated with subretinal fluid or RP alteration, and this may be the reason for the vision loss in these cases. Also, they may be associated with foveal schisis. Now, here you see at the area of the elevation summit, the height of foveal schisis is less. This is because of the buckling effect of the macula. Another contour disorder is a tilted disc syndrome, where a horizontal scan may show a normal scan, but when we do a vertical scan, the shallow staphylomatous area in the inferior nasal is prominently seen. Now, you see the abrupt change in the choroidal thickness at the edge of the staphyloma, and this is at this age that there are outer retinal changes present, and they may present with macular changes. This is one of the cases where tilted disc syndrome had presented with myopic traction maculopathy. Coming further, we'll talk about the choroidal cavitatory disorders, one of which is the peripapillary intrachoroidal cavitation. Now, clinically, we see that there is a yellowish elevated area in the peripapillary area, and when we do a OCT, we see that there are choroidal defects present, which is very well documented on the 3D OCTA. Now, why to diagnose this? Now, this patient may also have glaucoma-like defects, but it is not because of the glaucoma, it is because of this peripapillary cavitation. Sometimes they may be associated with retinal detachment, retinoschisis without any break. Also, one should not confuse them with hemangioma or granuloma. Another disorder is the focal choroidal excavation, where there is thinning and excavation of the choroid. Now, if the retinal layers do not conform with it, and there is a septation in the retinal layers, this is known as the non-conforming type. Whereas, if the retinal layers follow the same choroidal excavation, it is said to be conforming type. One of the important factors is that the sclera is usually normal thickness and has normal contour. Now, this focal choroidal excavation could be present in the peripapillary areas, and usually they may be associated with CNVM. Hence, these cases need to be followed up regularly. Other cases where we could see focal choroidal excavation is the osteoma or the Stargardt disease, Best disease. Another entity is the choroidal caverns in age-related macular degeneration. Mostly they are seen in geographic atrophic areas. However, they do not have any prognostic significance, but one should know these findings. Coming to other changes in ARMD, we have outer retinal tubulations in neovascular MD as well as geographic atrophic areas, where you see hyperreflective structures with hyperreflective borders, and usually they are seen in the outer retinal area. This are suggestive of the outer retinal tubulations. These are the photoreceptor degenerative changes and are usually associated with poor prognosis. This can be associated in other retinal dystrophies also, like in this case, which was a Beattie's crystalline dystrophy. Now, drusenate deposits are very well documented on OCT, and depending upon the location, you can classify them. So usually in subretinal drusenate deposits are associated with formation of neovascularization, and they should be followed up regularly. Also, atrophy has been classified recently into various stages, where depending upon the RP and outer retinal involvement. Stage A is where there is complete RP and outer retinal atrophy, whereas stage B is where there is incomplete involvement of both these structures. Now, a further classification where there is intactness of the RP, but the outer retina is involved. That is, whether it is complete or incomplete, it is further classified. Further changes could be associated with SRIM, that is subretinal hyperreflective material, which is usually seen in neovascular AMD and often persists after anti-VEGF treatment. The composition varies with time and usually composed of fluid, fibrin, blood, and choroidal neovascular membrane. The height, greater the height of the SRIM and greater the width, poorer is the visual prognosis. Another entity you've seen with AMD is the multi-layered PED. This is a choroidal elevation with hyperreflective and hyporeflective band, and in some cases they may be associated with a prechoroidal cleft. The prechoroidal cleft may be indicative that the visual prognosis may be good in these cases. However, recent studies have showed that this hyperreflective band may be a precursor of fibrotic scar, and these cases may have poorer visual prognosis. Now, in PCV, we have seen OCT shows us various signs like double layer sign, thumb-like PED. In addition, sometimes when there is bleed also, it shows us the area of the bleed, the PEDs which are present. And this may also help us in the prognosticating and managing the patient further surgically. After AMD, we have the diabetic disorders, and OCT has been used as for biomarkers to prognosticate the cases. One of them is the disorganization of the retinal layers, where within 1 mm of the fovea, the inner retinal layer, if disorganized, they usually have a poor prognosis visually in future. Another various disorders described are the hyperreflective foci, which are present in the inner retinal layers and may extend to the outer retinal layers and further, and usually they do not have any shadowing. Now, the association with visual acuity of hyperretinal foci is not very well known, and but they are known to respond well with steroids. Now, this was a case of this was the series of cone dystrophy which we had analyzed, and various stages were seen from a foveal cavitation only, where the ELM external limiting membrane was intact, to the severe involvement where there was thinning of all the layers. And we had seen that in early stages, clinically, the patients may not show any features, but this was the sign which was present in the early stages on OCT. Coming to AMN and PAM disorders, where there is perifoveal lesions, where the lesions are extending towards the fovea. On FAP, fluorescent angiography, there may be minimal changes, or there could be hypofluorescence present. And on OCT is the main thing which differentiates the two. In AMN, it is involvement of the outer plexiform layer and the ellipsoid zone hyperreflectivity. While in PAM, that there is outer plexiform and inner nuclear involvement present. On OCTA, we see that there is perivenular fern-like pattern. OCTA has been now a direless angiography known to everyone, shows the various layers to us and have been used in CNVM detection. Now, this was a case where there was
Dr. Vidya, you can go on calmly. We have enough time. Don't worry.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So this was a case where there was a right eye scar present, and in left eye there were subretinal drusenoid deposits with subretinal hemorrhages. And when we saw that we did a fundus fluorescent angiography, we saw that there was dilatation of the vessels and leak present, and OCT showed intracystic fluid compartment with hyperreflectivity in one area. When we did OCT of this patient, we saw that there was a choroidal neovascular complex present in the vascular complex present in the deep layers. Now, this was suggestive of retinal angiomatosis proliferans. Now, this was another case where there was a pigmentary changes at the posterior pole, and when we did OCT, we saw that there was a foveal cavitation present. OCTA showed a vascular network in the deep layers, whereas other layers were normal. This was idiopathic parafoveal telangiectasia. This was another case with IPFT, where fluorescent angiogram showed a leak in the perifoveal area. And the OCTA showed a vascular network in the deep as well as choriocapillaries layer. So when we compared both OCTA and fluorescent angiography in cases with diabetic retinopathy, we saw that most of the features were very much prominent, including the microaneurysm, the CNP areas, and the choroidal neovascularization. Does OCT and OCTA together have helped us to identify various points in different disorders and have helped us to understand the pathophysiology and understand the disease in the process? Thank you.